The latest round of indirect ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas have ended without a breakthrough. In fact, the latest round of indirect negotiations come as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu heads to Washington to meet Donald Trump. Netanyahu says he thinks his meeting with the US President, which is scheduled for Monday as in today, should help progress efforts to reach a deal for the release of more hostages and also a ceasefire in Gaza. He actually said he had given his negotiators clear instruction to achieve a ceasefire agreement under conditions Israel has accepted. Here's what the US President had to say.
But we're working on a lot of things with Israel, and one of the things is probably a permanent deal with Iran. In other words, they have to give up all of the things that you know so well. The attack turned out, according to every single Atomic Energy Commission, that was a complete and total obliteration.
For an expert's view on the matter, joining us currently, Daniel Block. Daniel, always a pleasure to have you on our show. How crucial would you say this upcoming Netanyahu-Trump meeting in Washington is?
I think it's going to be very important, both to Netanyahu and to Trump. And one of them is going to wind up being disappointed because the two of them, I think, in many ways have oppositional goals, even though they don't see it that way. Netanyahu wants to stay in power. I think that's one of his primary goals. This is for a domestic audience in many ways. He wants to make sure that he can win the next election, which is not going to be all that far away. And he wants to keep his coalition together so he can postpone the election for as long as possible. And if he gives in to all of Trump's requirements and demands, which is a ceasefire and a permanent ceasefire in Gaza as soon as possible, that could cause some domestic political problems for him. Trump, on the other hand, wants the same thing in some ways he said he wanted from the beginning, which is an end to the war in Gaza. He wants it to be done permanently, not just a temporary ceasefire. And so he's going to try and press Netanyahu to agree to that. And we're going to see what happens.
Indeed. Also, Daniel, as we wrap, how credible would you say this current ceasefire push is? Are we really witnessing real diplomatic momentum?
I'm going to be hesitant to say we're witnessing real diplomatic momentum to end the war in Gaza until I see the war in Gaza actually end. Because the truth is we've been down this road before, as I'm sure you know. We've had ceasefire deals that had pathways to becoming permanent ceasefire deals, and they've collapsed.
Yes.
The war has started again. Israel has resumed bombing Gaza. And a lot of this, again, has to do with the domestic political dynamics within Israel itself. Now, there's, I think, a sense in Washington that maybe this time is a little bit more serious than it was before, that Trump is more determined to get a permanent ceasefire. And you do see within Israel a desire to end the war among the domestic population. There has gone up, I think, to a pretty significant extent from early on. And so there's more of a chance now than there was before to have an actual ceasefire that stops the fighting. But again, until it's actually said and done,
Indeed.
I'm not going to trust it.
Daniel, always a pleasure to hear your views. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll keep in touch with you for regular updates.